All right, so what we're going to talk about here are composite functions. Previously, we just combined them. Now we're going to talk about composite functions, which is essentially where we start plugging in functions into other functions. So essentially, our notation for this is going to be this little circle, right? It'll be a circle, and that circle is going to be read, you're going to read it with the word of. So when I see this here, I see f of g like that, and then ultimately of x. And so this means we're going to plug in one function to the other. All right, and we are not multiplying. This isn't multiplying like on the previous page. All right, it's not multiplication like what was on the previous page. So this is f of g of x, and this would look like f of g of x, right? So previously, if we saw something like f of 2, what we would have done is gone through and replaced an x, every x with a 2, like that, from this function here. But now what we're going to do is actually go through and replace every place we have an x with the entire g of x function. And so what that's going to look like is it's going to look something more like f of x squared plus 2x plus 6. That's this part right here, and we're plugging it right in for x when we do that. Okay, and so then it's just a matter of going through and doing this. So this is, now we go back to our f of x function over here, and it's 2, and then instead of x, we're going to write x squared plus x. We're going to write x squared plus 2x plus 6, like that, and then our minus 5. So essentially, this x, oops, thought that was the highlighter. This x right here, we're replacing with this right there, which came from g of x, and that's it right there. So this is the x part right there, right? Like this part is x, so it's 2x minus 5. We substituted in right there. All right, after that, it's a matter of just distributing everything out. So 2x squared plus 4x plus 12 minus 5. So I just distributed that 2 through the parentheses, and then this will become 2x squared. I'm going to combine all my like terms, and only these two constants at the end. I have a 12 minus 5, which is a plus 7. And so that's my result right there. 2x squared plus 4x. Oh, I made a little mistake here. Sorry. This is a minus sign right there, and I wrote it as a plus sign. So then that just becomes a minus sign down here. Minus 4x. Sorry about that. So it's like that, minus 4x. Okay, so be careful. You make sure you get your functions done the proper way. Okay, so there's that one. The next one would be g of f of x. And so I'm going to let you have a try at that one. Essentially, you're going to plug them in the opposite way. So this will be equal to g of f of x. So you're going to plug f of x inside of g of x. So you're going to take this f of x and plug it in everywhere there's an x to come up with your new function. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here for a moment and give you a try that one. All right, so for number 14 here, we're actually going to use our result from number 13. So we did number 13, and all we did was we plugged in f inside of g. And so that's what 14 is asking us to do again. But it's also then asking us to plug in 1. So essentially what this one looks like is g of f of 1. And so that's what we're trying to do here, is ultimately plug 1 in once we get this. So we're just going to plug 1 into g of f of x. And so we can do that by taking our result from right here in the previous question and doing 4 times, and then we'll have 1 squared minus 24 times 1 plus 41. This then gives us 4 minus 24 plus 41, and that would be a total value of 1. All right, so since we already had that result, we could just simply do that. What would have happened if we had tried first of finding f of 1? So if we look up here and we see that f of x is just this, we could have plugged that in. We could have done f of 1 equals 2 times 1 minus 5, just like that. I didn't need that parenthesis at the end. And so that's 4 minus 5, that's negative 1. And then what if we had plugged that into g of x? And g of x was what? 2, or x squared minus 2x. So g of f of, so basically do g of negative 1 here. And this would have been, sorry, what was it? X squared minus 2x. So negative 1 squared minus 2 times negative 1, and then plus a 6. And so that, if we went through in that order, did I do that right? Hold on a second. I'm not going to record me. Okay. So it helps a lot if you can do 2 times 1 minus 5 is not negative 1. Sorry, that's going to be something different. So that's 2 minus 5, that's negative 3. So this is negative 3 squared and a negative 3 there. And so then this gives us, we're plugging in the negative 3, this gives us 9 plus 6 plus 6, and that gives us the same 21. So be very careful. Like I said, be meticulous with these. Make sure you don't make a little mistake like I just did right there. All right, so let's go ahead and let y'all try number 15. All right, so here on this page, it's a matter of just plugging in and trying these things with graphs rather than the actual functions. And so what you can see here is we have f plus g evaluated at 0. And the way we can do that is essentially we're going to do the sum of the two functions and then evaluate them at 0. So f plus g would literally be going through to every point and adding the two graphs together. So like, say I was looking at this point right here, I would say this has a value of 1, this has a value of 4, and so my f of g value would be a value of 5, my f plus g. It would put me up there, okay? And so you would go through and do that for each and every point. However, we don't need to go through and do that for each and every point. What we can actually just do here is what has the same effect is just doing f of 0 plus g of 0. So we're essentially just going to pick this point out, these 2 points out here at x equals 0. We don't need to do the whole graph. We can just go through and do those ones. This first value here, right there, that first bottom one, let me highlight it instead. This first bottom one here, that's a 1. This one above it is a 2. And so what we end up with is f of x is 2 and g of x is 1, like that. And I highlighted it this way where this was that 2 and this was that 1 from the g of x function. And so we just get a total of then 3. 2 plus 1 is 3, which is what would have happened had we added those 2 points together up. It would have put us up here at 3. For doing f times g of 3, we're going to do something similar where we're just going to go to the value that go to the value of 3 and then just multiply the two results together, which are right there. So this essentially becomes f of 3 times g of 3, like that. We're just multiplying them together. When we look at this one, we can see that this value down here is -3. And this other value up here, right there, is a 0. So it's -3 times 0, which gives us a 0. All right, so that's how you can do those first two and do the similar kind of things for division and subtraction. And then this last one is f of g of x, which if you remember, this one means f of g of 5. And so what we can do is actually go through to the g of x function at 5, which is out here. And so that's this value right here. That g of 5 is a -2. And so this becomes f of -2. And then what I do is I go over here to -2 for the f of x function, and I find that it has a value of 3. So it's just a matter of plugging it into one, getting its output value, and then taking that output value and plugging it into the other one for its output value. So what I would leave you to do is to go ahead and try the next one, and then I will go over it here in a minute.